Punk music, they say, is a rebellion wrapped in a three-chord structure, a raw expression of dissatisfaction and defiance. It didn't just spring from nowhere. It emerged from the ashes of societal discontent, from the gritty streets of London and New York in the mid-1970s, where the air was thick with unrest and the youth were restless. It was a response to a world that felt suffocating, a world that seemed to be moving too fast while leaving so many behind. The pioneers of this movement were not just musicians. They were a collective of misfits and outcasts, people who refused to conform to the norms dictated by the establishment. Bands like the Sex Pistols, The Clash, and Ramones didn't just play music. They created anthems for a generation that felt unheard, unseen, and unvalued. The Sex Pistols, with their snarling lyrics and chaotic energy, were the face of punk. They didn't just challenge the status quo, they tore it apart. Their music was a visceral punch to the gut, a declaration that the youth were fed up with being told how to live, how to think, how to act. Anarchy in the UK wasn't just a song. It was a manifesto, a rallying cry for those who felt trapped in a system that didn't care about them. And then there was The Clash, who took the punk ethos and expanded it, incorporating reggae, ska, and rockabilly into their sound, broadening the definition of what punk could be. They sang about social issues, political strife, and the struggles of everyday life, reminding us that punk was not just about noise. It was about message, about meaning. And let's remember the stage antiques of Iggy Pop, and what about the Misfits? They always gave you an awesome show. And let's not forget the Ramones, the kings of simplicity, whose three-chord songs were both catchy and profound. They stripped rock music down to its essence, proving that you didn't need technical prowess to make an impact. Their songs were short, sharp bursts of energy that encapsulated the angst of youth. Blitzkrieg Bop and I Wanna Be Sedated became anthems for those who felt like they were on the outside looking in, an invitation to join a community that thrived on individuality and nonconformity. But punk wasn't just a moment in time. It was a movement that continued to evolve. The 1980s brought a wave of new bands that took the torch from those early pioneers. Bands like Bad Brains and Minor Threat infused the scene with hardcore punk, a faster, more aggressive sound that mirrored the growing frustration of a generation. The DIY ethic became central to punk culture, with bands self-producing their records, organizing their tours, and creating their own spaces. It was about taking control, about refusing to let anyone dictate how they created or shared their art. The message was clear: if you wanted something done, you had to do it yourself. As the decades rolled on, punk continued to mutate and adapt. The 1990s saw the rise of pop-punk, with bands like Green Day and Blink-182 bringing punk to the mainstream. They captured the spirit of rebellion, but wrapped it in catchy melodies and relatable lyrics, making it accessible to a new generation of fans. But even as they achieved commercial success, they maintained that punk ethos of questioning authority and challenging the status quo. Green Day's American Idiot was a scathing critique of the political landscape, a reminder that punk was still alive and well, still relevant in a world that seemed to be spiraling out of control. Fast forward to today, and the spirit of punk is alive and thriving in a new generation of artists who continue to push boundaries and challenge norms. Bands like Idols and Fontaines DC have emerged, infusing their music with a sense of urgency and social consciousness that echoes the sentiments of the pioneers. Idols, with their raw energy and unapologetic lyrics, tackle issues like toxic masculinity and mental health, proving that punk is not just about rebellion, but also about vulnerability and connection. Their song Danny Nedelko is a celebration of friendship and unity, a reminder that punk can be both fierce and compassionate. Fontaines DC, hailing from Dublin, brings a poetic sensibility to their punk roots, weaving narratives that reflect the struggles and triumphs of working-class life. Their music captures the essence of modern discontent, echoing the feelings of alienation and frustration that have persisted through generations. They remind us that punk is not a relic of the past, but a living, breathing entity that evolves with the times. And then there's the rise of DIY culture in the digital age, where artists can share their music without the constraints of traditional record labels. The internet has become a breeding ground for new punk sounds, allowing voices from all corners of the globe to be heard. Bands like Amel and the Sniffers and the Chats are taking the punk ethos and infusing it with their unique perspectives, reminding us that punk is a global phenomenon, one that transcends borders and cultures. Punk music is not just about the sound. It's about the attitude, the spirit of defiance that refuses to be silenced. It's about standing up for what you believe in, about being true to yourself in a world that often demands conformity. The pioneers laid the groundwork, but the torch has been passed, and the fire is still burning bright. Today's artists are not just keeping the spirit of punk alive, they are redefining it, expanding its boundaries, and ensuring that its message continues to resonate in a world that desperately needs it. Punk is not just a genre, it's a way of life, a movement that will continue to inspire and provoke, a testament to the power of music as a force for change. The history of punk is not just a story of the past. It's a living narrative that unfolds with each new generation, a reminder that the spirit of rebellion is timeless, and as long as there are voices willing to speak out, punk will never die.